It's Sunday. It's May 24th, 2023. Um, Today, Lewis took Linda, myself, and my son to something called Washington Square Park in Manhattan. Um, this is just my after report. Um, there was an area of Washington Square Park where there was a net, and then there was again, for lack of a better word, it's almost like Spartan training, like I've seen, but like real kid level, like real basic training. So he crawled on top of the net, then he went under the net, then he like again, just to get some balance training and whatever. It's basics. It's just what we have available to us. So I took some pictures. That's what he was doing. I don't know where fraternal order went. The level that I was used to at fraternal order, or at least growing up. I mean, yesterday I watched two movies. One I would not have put on myself, but Lewis put it on, and it was almost like a case study of what the CIA looked like in South America during one presidency. Um, and then there was a second movie which also mentioned the CIA, different aspect of the CIA though. Um, and it uses this concept of development of assets in the field. Um, and so, like, my development was just different, but it feels like then something happened and it almost just what became underdeveloped. I just don't know, or just I again I have no idea what my beginnings that looked very much in the development phase, how it just petered out. I mean, again, remote viewing in astral planing, I was asked to do very young and early on. It affected my whatever, but I don't. Where are law guardians on this? In where did mine go? Where did a handler go? Um, so for like guidance and measure. So anyhow, Lewis took us to Washington Square Park. I'm walking with my son and I'm looking at the quality of people. Linda even said, um, back in the day, and I get the artist colony, and I'm not making judgment. Really, I'm not. They live the way that they want to live. They're peaceful, they're free, they're harmonious. Like, great. However, as a cosmic mother with child, with several children, what I'm not comfortable with is being in Washington Square Park and being surrounded by potheads, or being surrounded by people who want to smoke marijuana openly. I'm not okay with it. I don't want my son exposed to it. We went into Washington Square Park. Some of the visual art was, I mean, if I could cover my son's eyes, I would have. If I had seen it prior to him glancing upon it, it was so whatever. It's a different type of art than I'm used to. Anyhow, so the it has changed so much in I don't know who made these changes. There's this Mayor Eric Adams who looks more like Obama's fraternal order than the noble blood that is involved with the monetary system inside the United States of America, being Northern Hemisphere. I'm really uncomfortable with some of the operations that have gone on and some of the admins that are put in place, and it's confusing, and then this lack of like constant contact and communication also is very disruptive. Um, what I'm seeing as far as real estate portfolios and investments in the city for billionaire alley that may not be here resident full time, but have assets that they still want to protect. I'm very concerned about some of this new movement of populations that don't necessarily belong here. I don't know why it's now claimed sanctuary. I don't know why they're taking on. I did not approve this. I was not asked for a vote. My vote was completely taken. I have children and future here as permanent residents because I don't know how to get out. I don't even know how to contact and which fraternal order I should be speaking to. I guess the last fraternal I spoke with was Jefferson, but I don't know how to get to him on a day-to-day basis in like emergency contacts. So, um, so anyhow, so I'm keeping an eye on the current events. I've actually physically went with my son. The air was so full of marijuana. We left the park very abruptly. But I mean, like the clothes smelled like it. That's how much is just hanging in the air. Um, Again, Lewis is not walking with the Dark Lord, and he's not in business with the Dark Lord. He is with, which is immoral, he is walking with David. Thank God for David, the God, because he's back in the hands of David, which, well, not holding hands, but like I'm grateful that he actually has scheduled time with David on a weekly basis. I'm hoping this is going to move into the correct direction at God level. Um, so we left the park and we returned to the car. And even on our way in, there is so much inner city graffiti. This tagging system. I was trying to look for letters and symbols and patterns that looked like constructively as we drove. Again, I was just doing a business like a pattern analysis as we drove. Um, but it's not murals where it's underground artists that are contracted and then that's a different artistic talent. This is very really, it looks like cartel movement or tagging or signage of some sort, which makes me very uncomfortable on a whole nother frightful level. So then we again, I can still get into Manhattan freely and then leave Manhattan. I have movement, so that's a good sign. So we then came back to Queens so I could make my update as to what's going on as eyes and ears on the ground. Um, and so with correct fitness test and knowing that there is a fraternal order that granted me some honor certificate once upon a time and whatever that meant. Um, but I'm just keeping an eye on several different levels. So anyway, my son met this man who was feeding the pigeons, and he, my 2012, loves the loves the birds from afar. Like he always wants to try to hold the birds or to touch the birds, or so this man gave him the food, and my son for the first time ever got the birds to come to him. It was such like a holiday for him. Small things that we have to look forward to. So we were very grateful and thankful to the man. He apparently has a big following. And then it dawns on me, he calls himself Birdman. He has a YouTube series, and his media specialist goes by the name Nicholas Heller. that ties back to Hannah and Eric Heller from something that I watched the other day. Um, so whatever on that. Um, in all right, so now he found the Birdman in like astronomical like coincidences, right? Yeah. Um, so there's that. So anyhow, I'm still in an era where the nobility of the US still looks ancestrally correct. On the back of it, it still uses this word God, and it still has the us in the US. Um, so that's crucial and important as well. Now, I come home trying to keep an eye on some of the current events. Um, and I'm listening to Eric Adams, and he's saying this price tag is 4.3 billion for these new people. They're actually kicking out paying visitors. Now, and we were down by this college called NYU. Um, it just feels like somebody is trying to tank New York City and damage its worldly reputation. I don't know who has, I don't know who hates New York City so much that they would actually want to hurt New York City. Um, Again, I know somebody hit World Trade Towers and whatever on that. But I don't have any real intelligence to speak to directly. There's a problem with me and their fraternal order, and they're withholding intelligence from my person. For what reason, I don't know. But that's part of the internal mechanics of New York City that's not working for me. Um, and I don't know who they're working for. But I'm here, and it's just going unaddressed. I'm in Queens, no less. Um, so I'm gonna look up this. I don't know how they turned New York City into a sanctuary city. I don't know whose idea that was. Again, on Sunday morning, they did a whole thing on Billionaire Alley. They mentioned Trump. I mean, he's the only billionaire I know that's ever sat in a boardroom. And he looks probably closest to familial to my genetic appearance than anyone else I've ever seen on a book or a magazine cover for specifically located in New York. Um, so I'm not really sure if that's a help or a hindrance. I know he's again, I'm popularity contest. But there are specific ways to how do you look for the pieces of genetic sequence that are your best shot at getting to the correct place for like some people just have more movement and power than others. Listen, there's the 1%. I have a GOD on file. I was marked for something, whatever it was, and it's on file with the humans or with the fraternal like system. And then there's the 10% population left globally my of our genetic sequence that has a differential than the rest of the 90%. As far as management goes, the 90% that have some similarity to them, whatever it is, even though they might have other differences, um, it is just easier to disassociate and then reorganize as the 10% looks over the 90%. That's it. as far as an endangered population of something else completely. So there's that. I don't know how I got stuck somewhere between 1 to 10% in a pyramid where 1 is the top and 90, 100 is at the bottom, and I'm at the 10% level. But it's not a monetary thing because there's all sorts of differentials with some of the 90% are monetarily way more. But again, even on a periodic table, the noble gases are in a whole separate column for a whole different set of reasons and properties than the rest of the periodic table. Um, just to bring it to like some kind of scientific whatever. So I'm going to pause this for a second and I'm going to just put up this new message that they have on the news just to keep with current events. All right, so this is what they're saying. It's Channel 7.
Eric Adams says the city has seen a surge of migrants. Adams says in the last week alone, more than 900 asylum seekers arrived in Manhattan.
The mayor says based on the number of migrants arriving on buses, the city is projected to spend close to $4.3 billion, and that total continues to rise.
And the hefty price tag is taking its toll on the city's hotel industry and the city's economy. Rooms typically used and paid for by tourists are now filled with migrants and paid by the city. Sean Cullen paid for a room and was denied entry at the Holiday Inn LaGuardia West Hotel. Well, now he wants to sound the alarm on the issue. He spoke to Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Carlo.
U.S. military and asylum seekers
Now, they're saying that this is U.S. military, and that's their... that is a very different fatigue. I know the material of the fatigue has to have, they're claiming that they're US. I have no way of verifying that. I don't know who hired them. I don't know what company they're with. I don't even know, are they fraudsters? Are they some kind of installment that like Fraternal Order needs to know about? How do I vet that? I'm stuck in a series of rooms and I'm in a fallout shelter in Queens. I have no access to New York City anything. I graduated with a certificate that said New York City Council or Assembly member, and I don't even know what that means because even in 1995, 96, they were not giving me any intelligence. So this gets really precarious as I have a lifetime seat with paper, but I don't know what all of this display is that's going on. And I don't exactly have a science principle that I trust that I know how to find. Again, I come from a family that's got vets, like Corvettes. That's like a signature move in union members. But I, again, don't have access to them for other reasons.
Long Island City's Holiday Inn LaGuardia West. Travelers with reservations like Sean Cullen are no longer welcome.
And when checking in, I was greeted with staff in tears, National Guard in the room, and advised that it's no longer a hotel and it's a government building.
What was supposed to be a relaxing trip quickly turned into a trip.
Now, how did the hotel become a government building when I don't even know if those are real U.S. officials? I mean, they're saying they are. They're dressing in some uniform, but I don't know how to classify them. I don't know how to run that through some process to make sure that they're legitimate and that like real security is on top of these pieces. How did they take over a hotel and start moving some population that is not indigenous to North America and does not fit our parameters or guidelines for full-time residency. How on earth did they get this accomplished? And where is the real security feature that shuts this down, collects them, and returns them to wherever they came from so they don't become a burden and essentially collapse New York City and its economy and its ability to survive and self-sustain?
Travel nightmare. Cullen flew all the way from Minnesota to find this note on the door. Due to unforeseen circumstances at our property, we are not able to accommodate your reservation, it reads, dated May 15th, a day before his arrival. He says there was no heads up, no warning.
It was awful. Awful for me. It was awful for my guests who flew from Australia, 38 hours, to sit in a lobby for 7 hours and no action from IHG.
Cullen says he booked his room online through Intercontinental Hotels Group, or IHG, 2 weeks in advance, not realizing he'd be booted because of a crisis, one that's costing the city much more than what it's getting in aid from the Biden administration, the mayor said Sunday.
We've spent over $1 billion. When you look at the price tag, $30 million comes nowhere near what this city is paying for a national problem.
Mayor Adams' office says the city is...
And I'm just curious, when I go to Canada with the black hand problem that was following me around that I couldn't get rid of, or I couldn't shake the toilet paper off my shoe, as I like to say. And there I was surrounded by Morris, his Exit Realty, and whatever was going on in the ticket said I was going to Canada. I don't really know where the plane landed. I don't, to be honest. I wasn't in the cockpit. There was no like overhead announcement saying that I was conscious for. Then again, that's not a first timer for me. I've gone unconscious before en route on travel plans. Don't know who was involved. Don't know why. But at some point I came to. I was made aware I was wherever I was. And there's no questioning that. I mean, I have no way of gauging if they were telling me the truth or not. So there's that. And who is this administration and where were they chosen from? What pool of applicants decided, and what fraternal order? I mean, like, there's one fraternal order at 1% at principles inside in the founding fathers and ancestors of the children of the U.S. system, the us system, the seeds in the garden that received that level of management benefit and ran the entire system before air travel took off, before vacationers and voyagers started to expedite whatever they were expediting, and then unwanted guests started to just arrive, and then some process that used to exist and be very stringent started to break down. There is still a fraternal order. What I'm supposed to call them or how I'm supposed to recognize them, I'm not clear. But I need some form of a loyal guardian. And I don't know how to contact and ask for help. And I don't know who to contact and ask for help at this point on behalf of myself and my children.
Is using more than 150 hotels to shelter more than 41,000 asylum seekers. That's over 40% of hotels with 51 to 200 units. One can't help but wonder what the impact on summer tourism will be on a city that so heavily relies on it.
Now, my impression of New York City is that hotel and that experience.
IHG did eventually find Cullen another hotel, but he says it was more expensive. Eyewitness News reached out to IHG and the mayor's office for comment. Meanwhile, just today,
This is not good customer service. We had in North America. The reason why people come here, the reason why they love us, is because we are a solid government that has laws and rules and justice and a system. Stuff like this breaks down that appearance. It feels like somebody is just trying to whittle away at it and give us a bad reputation. And I'm starting to see it more and more. And I don't see things being rectified in the correct direction. Also, something I was concerned about and put on file when I was part of RV at remote viewing in premonitions and visions as a child, being part of the GOD in a very different way before I got moved out of city limits into Suffolk for I don't know what purpose. Development of something else, I suppose.
Adams calling on the federal government again to make sure asylum seekers are moved throughout the nation so it doesn't become a burden for any one city in particular. In Long Island City, Anthony Carlo, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
A war of words between Suffolk County members of the Suffolk County Legislature and state officials. County leaders announced their plan to stop New York City from sending asylum seekers their way. The action says they say this is not an anti-immigration stance, but the protesters chanted immigrants.
Let me say something. If halting all immigration for a cool-off period saves our way of life, our economy, and lets us repair some of the travel concerns that are going on based on this experience and based on what's been accumulating, if that saves the American dream, the American way of life for the permanent residents of the United States, not like the transients, not the people who have like 10 different properties and a whole portfolio and a whole staff, and like they don't really feel the damage that's done by games that are played and they don't really care. And if you ask nicely, maybe they'll listen. Maybe. If there was to put a hold on, I mean, I see the anger in the room and I'm like, well, that's why we don't ask the 90%. Just saying. If it's going to damage New York, where is the immediate cease and desist and halt? So this way there could be internal repairs done immediately for our safety and security and longevity. So like other more nasty, larger words that like portfolio managers know and have studied, and like poor schmoes like the 10% of the top 1 to 10% still haven't learned in whatever I am. But I don't like living within the 90% where they like hate, like, and then they're arguing the wrong side. And I'm just like, if your argument was going to ensure that your children didn't survive here and there was no future for all of you and you were dragging us into Third World War, would you sit down and be quiet for 5 minutes so the top 10% could have a chat and a conversation in a very real way to repair the system before more damage is done and we get pulled into a war?
Are welcome here.
This is the 90%.
Rincon has the story.
New York City made a conscious decision to call itself a sanctuary city. Suffolk County did not.
It was similar rhetoric to what we've heard from officials in Rockland and other suburban counties saying Suffolk can't afford to house migrants.
This is not an anti-immigration stance. We recognize.
But several residents saw it as exactly that.
We recognize.
Some brought signs saying, "Remember Marcelo Lucero, an Ecuadorian immigrant killed in Patchogue 15 years ago in a hate crime."
We spend tens of billions of dollars
sending money.
At times, the officials could barely finish their sentences. Congressman Nick LaLota blamed New York City for welcoming migrants and sheltering them.
And those folks who have created this mess owe the responsibility to pay for this mess.
There were supporters in the crowd.
And my taxes should not go to illegals because they have gave nothing to this country.
But others calling that rhetoric disappointing, divisive, and xenophobic.
The level of hatred that I've heard in this room today, it's really upsetting.
It is not who we're supposed to be as Americans. It really falls short of who we say we are and what we're supposed to live up to.
The mayor today making yet another plea for federal help.
Last time I checked, North America won the Civil War. Just saying, as I heard history. I heard history portrayed the correct way. I'm pretty sure they learned history the correct way, that the North won the war, the Civil War. So I'm not clear why the South is creeping up into our North American way of living, and why at any level that this is able to continue in any strength or any length of time. But it seems like it's been quietly creeping in small deposits that have gone unacknowledged by the news or by communication levels. Certainly nothing I've ever heard of. But it seems they keep depositing by some method, like, and then more enter, and then more enter. And now it's like they've gone through schooling and now they're advocating and calling out to more from, like, to just pile in some new, like, law changing and shifting demographics that look like it is really, if I look at it from like a portfolio analysis, it looks like the beginnings of, or some, not even beginnings. I mean, it looks like it's in the throes of trying to tank the portfolio in New York and turn it into something very different, which I'm not comfortable with. I mean, there's a reason why there's 50 states, and there's a 50-state federal system, and there is a fraternal order that looks over those business affairs. And I am not clear as to why the demographics are changing and sliding in such a detrimental way of population changes, and then language changes, and then scriptural changes. By script, I mean calligraphy, cartography. Calligraphy, meaning we have a very, I call it English, but I guess it could, we have a 26-letter alphabet. Just leave it at that. Only 26 letters. It's all we use. I don't know why it's being expanded, or even, I mean, if these are billion-dollar investors that are coming in to enhance their real estate portfolios, the people that they send here, if they're not learning a 26-letter system, there's no point in them being here. So I don't understand why they're enhancing it for even a second to anybody that wants to have any kind of residency here. It seems to be anti-American to do so, which then causes other problems.
Help with the crisis.
42,000 are still in our care, and we are seeing around several hundreds a day. Last week, several days, we received over 900. This is just not sustainable.
In response to Suffolk County officials today, the mayor's spokesman went on to say we need counties, cities, and towns across the state to do their part as well, especially when New York City is willing to pay for shelter, food, and more. In most areas, we're not even asking localities to help manage 0.25% of the asylum seekers that have arrived in New York City.
The people that they're sending in are from, some of them are from a 29-letter alphabet. We don't recognize that. We are a 26-letter alphabet. That's it. I don't understand why there's not a simple test before they get shipped out to wherever else they can go. But we are a 26-letter alphabet. Why is that not a standard that must be passed before they are able to enter our system if they are looking for residency of any kind.
And again, with New York covering the costs.
Orange and Rockland counties are suing the city to stop it from bringing migrants to hotels there. Suffolk County's executive has only said his county will be both fiscally responsible and humane, but the town of Riverhead has declared an emergency in order to stop its shelters from accepting asylum seekers. In the newsroom, Sonia Rincon, Channel 7, Eyewitness News. And stay with Eyewitness News and ABC7NY for continuing coverage of the migrants seeking asylum here in New York.
So in New York, you have a 90%er who's the spokesperson at, if we do like theater work, he's part of the 90%. All right. He goes by, I can't speak to him, so I don't know if he says he grew up in Bayside. I have no way of, but if I just go on face value, and if he really does go by a 26-letter alphabet and he's a whatever internally, I don't understand why there is any acceptance or allowance of whatever's trying to come in if they're not passing that very simple test of 26 letters is a requirement. 29 letters, it's like a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't fit. So, simple things are being mismanaged, and it's a concern. But I'm looking long-term portfolio concern of, I've been here since the beginning. My parents have been here before me. My grandparents entered before that. And my grandparents conformed to a 26-letter alphabet. There was no anything else. And since they've entered and agreed to the 26-letter alphabet, things have changed, and not for the better. And living here, I haven't been able to get out of the bottom 10% of my own fraternal order of there's 10% world population left of us, and then there's 90% something else. Even the 1% of my fraternal order has allowed the 90% to supersede myself and my children, and I don't know why. Where was my path and my development to stay somewhere where I could live safely between the 1 and 10%? Why is the 90% at any level inside New York superseding and then causing issues with my father? My father, during his pension building years, had a problem with being able to develop his own business. And he got some form of business partnership with something that, we had wonderful beginning partners with Rubenstein and so many others. I don't know where this twist or change happened that then caused other rippling effects, which then I felt in my life, and now I've got this 1975 problem. But I don't know how, and I'm trying now to carefully move it back into the correct direction now that I'm able to recognize this problem. But it has definitely damaged my ability as a woman, and I'm still walking with something that I can't even use as a companion because it's RH positive. It's part of the 90%. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies, broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.